that we have? If we have time, yes, sir.
Assuming you get to DC, what can you do, or what would you plan to do about the Bilderberg Group?
It's really hard. It's always this interesting question. I get asked every night, Blake, who's in charge? Who's in charge? It's not Joe Biden. Transparently, is it Obama? Is it Obama's Susan Rice? Is it George Soros? What's the highest level, right? Well, that's why ultimately, like, I'm a believer, right? I'm Catholic, I have faith. And there's a theological cut to all of this, right? It's not the 1980s anymore. This is not left versus right and Reagan and, versus Dick Gephardt and whose policies get to that healthy American middle class. No. I think it's America versus this internationalist, globalist agenda. Right, I really do. It's a healthy nationalism versus the entropy and chaos of anarchy. And that's what I think the left pushes. So I don't know if it's the Bilderberg Group. I don't know if it's Davos in that set. I don't know if it's George Soros, but whatever it is, I view progressivism. And there's always this question, actually, to get theological. Is the Antichrist a person? Is it a singular figure, or is it a system? One candidate is, it's the system, it's this decentralized progressivism. Right? But the progressives, if you just look at what they're doing, look at what the World Economic Forum is trying to do, they're trying to upend absolutely everything about our country, our history, our culture, our way of life.
The Great Reset.
The Great Reset. And so I think that's evil, and I think it's worth fighting against. Because this country, it's got problems, okay? But it is the best country that's ever existed in the history of the world. And the founders knew this. You have to renew the fight each generation. Because if you let it get stagnant and sclerotic and bureaucratic like it has been, we're at risk of losing it all. So whatever that force is out there, trying to upend everything and tear us apart, we have to fight it.
When you shine light on it so the cockroaches scatter.
That's right, and that's perfect. And that's my pledge. Like, people say, Blake, what, you sound great, but like, what can you do with one Senate vote? And I will vote the right way and introduce the right legislation, but so much of the job is cultural power, right? I might not be able to abolish the Department of Education on day one. Okay, it's going to take some time for me to whip the votes. I won't be able to implement it day two. The Internet Bill of Rights that we need that says you own your data, not Facebook, not Google, right? Some of this stuff is going to take time, but I promise I will shine the flashlight on Democrats and Republicans, the weak little rhinos, who are obstructing the agenda. I'll go on Tucker Carlson, I'll go on Joe Rogan, I will scream from the rooftops so that people know what's going on.
Thank you.
Yeah. Over the last several years have been corporations that are buying up all the single-family residences, and they are pushing the younger generation out of home ownership.
Yep.
There's a company in Canada that buys 800 homes a week in the United States and the Sun Belt.
It's crazy.
What are your thoughts and views on how to stop that and allow our future generations the opportunities that we had growing up?
Yep, you're totally right. And I went on Tucker Carlson early in my campaign, I think this was in July, and I talked about BlackRock buying up all these houses, right? And I know they don't own most of the U.S. housing stock now, but this is the time to get ahead of the problem before they really do. Home ownership is the path to the middle class, right? But the left, whatever these forces are, they want people to be renters, they want people to be dependent, they want to control everything about you. I think we need to ban foreigners from being able to buy large tracts of farmland. Why does China pay for that? But even if a giant private equity firm, even if BlackRock is incorporated in America, it doesn't mean that they're off limits. I think we need to study that problem, and I think we need rules. If you have over $1 trillion in market cap, maybe we just literally ban you from buying up any more single-family houses. Some libertarian types want to say, Blake, that's you can't intervene in the free market like that. But there's nothing free market about a giant $7 trillion asset manager like BlackRock trying to buy up all the single-family homes to drive rents up. That's just un-American, and I won't stand for it. Yes, sir.
You mentioned voting to impeach Biden. My thoughts is, what about Kathleen Kamala? She's next in line.
Yeah, that's the one argument against impeaching Joe Biden, okay?
And if we don't,
Is you got Kamala Harris. She's
win
his
the
best
House,
insurance
then
policy.
we got Crazy Nancy next in line.
Yeah. Well, here's my favorite. So you've heard that to be a Speaker of the House, you don't actually have to be a member of Congress. So what poetic justice would it be when we take back Congress to make President Trump Speaker of the House? Then you impeach and convict Biden. Then you impeach and convict Kamala. President Trump, I give you, I think he's going to run in 24 and win. That's his path back to the presidency. But it's true, and Kamala, maybe she's even more of a disaster than Joe Biden at this point. How weird is it, by the way, that we have a president and a vice president, neither of whom can speak? They can't form a coherent sentence for different reasons. Like, God bless him, pray for his soul. Biden's, he's senile, and it's sad to watch. I actually blame Jill Biden for that, right? Because it's elder abuse. She knows. Kamala is a younger woman, and she just can't. She's getting worse. She's getting worse. She did this bit on space the other day. Space connects us all, and it's like, what are they? So I agree. She's a threat to the republic, maybe even more so than Joe Biden, which is saying a lot. Yes.
Could you address your thoughts, your views on eliminating college debt?
Well, I don't think you can just forgive all the college debt, because what that is a transfer from hardworking, working class and middle class people to what I call the laptop class.
Yeah.
Right. It's just unfair. The way to deal with college debt, but I do think there's a problem. Right. It's predatory. There's this whole system that encourages young people to go out before their prefrontal cortexes are fully formed. If you're 17 and you want to go get a gender studies degree from Vassar College or whatever, the government will give you $150,000 in debt, none of which is dischargeable in bankruptcy, thanks to Joe Biden. It's basically indentured servitude, and that's messed up. So one of the first things you do is you say student loan debt is just like any other debt. It's dischargeable in bankruptcy. Okay? If you want to go bankrupt, you wipe the slate clean. That's the whole point. But then you send the colleges the bill. Right? You've got to make the colleges feel skin in the game. And that's how you do it. You get the government out of the student loan business, allow the debt to be dischargeable, and man, Harvard, if you're graduating somebody with a worthless degree and they can't pay back that debt, you get the bill, and you have to pay it. I think instantly that corrects, and you stop getting so many of these sham college degrees. Yes?
What are your thoughts on Section 230, and will Mark Brnovich show up to debate you?
I challenged Mark Brnovich to a debate in Chandler, Arizona on April 30th about election integrity. He's not going to show up. We know he's not going to show up, right? But he doesn't show. We have a candidate for him tomorrow, and Mark Brnovich is not going to show up. Did you know I've never seen Mark Brnovich in person? I'm beginning to think he doesn't exist. Okay, and I've seen everybody. I see all the gubernatorial candidates. I see my Senate competitors. Jim Layman, Mick McGuire. I've seen these guys dozens of times because we're all out on the campaign trail working hard. I've never laid eyes on Mark Brnovich. He thinks he's too good to face the voters and campaign. So he's not going to show up, but it'll be a cool rally and party anyway. Section 230, I think, is a start. You wipe away the liability protection that we give Facebook and Google. It's basically just corporate welfare at this point. The idea is if you're truly neutral, why should you be liable as the internet platform for some crazy stuff that someone says? But these companies aren't neutral platforms. They are publishers. They're putting their thumb on the scale. The problem with Section 230 reform is it doesn't go nearly far enough. You get rid of Section 230, now Facebook is just treated like the New York Times, right? We got to go so much further and treat Facebook and Twitter as common carriers. Just like the phone company. The phone company would love to listen in on our phone conversations and say, ooh, they're talking about President Trump and Steve Bannon, that's too conservative, let's cut them off. They'd love to do that. We don't allow the phone company to do that. We ban that kind of political discrimination. And so we need to regulate Twitter and Facebook in the same way and say, you cannot discriminate against users based on the political content of their views. I think that's table. We probably have to go a lot further still on big tech, but that's table stakes, and that's what playing offense looks like.
You must buy them all.
Yeah.
Can it be made into a public utility portal?
I don't even think you need to go that far. I mean, Facebook, I don't mind if it's a private company with private return to its shareholders, right? Facebook, Twitter, right? I think it's great if Elon takes the company private.
But don't you have a lot of public utilities that have stockholders as well, too?
Sure, and that's what I mean by common carrier, right? It's like this model with the phone company. It works really well. It works really well. You just literally don't allow them to discriminate against people. That solves like 80% of the censorship. They wouldn't have been able to kick off President Trump. They wouldn't be able to kick off Marjorie Taylor Greene. But I do think you have to go further. Like what I really worry about with big tech is election interference, right? I think weeks before anybody voted, and we can talk about all the problems with Maricopa County Board of Supervisors and Dominion voting systems, but weeks before any of that stuff went down, big tech threw this election. This is the first way in which they stole it for Joe Biden. They censored the Hunter Biden laptop story. Dozens of millions of Americans would have liked to have read about that before casting their votes, but they didn't get to because it was judged by these tech oligarchs to be disinformation, and they ripped it off. But at least even there, that censorship was transparent, right? Facebook had the story online, then they yanked it off. Here I am 15 months later complaining about it. What about Google? Okay, I think Google got caught asleep at the wheel in 2016. They didn't think Trump was going to win. and they did not want to make the same mistake again. And so I can't prove it, but that's kind of the point. We don't know what Google does. I really think they have motive and opportunity and capability to change their search engine algorithms in the weeks before an election, and they're clever. They're clever enough to be subtle about it, but they can subtly boost Biden content, suppress Trump content, and if you know anything about how big tech and media headlines move minds, that's the election right there. Right? Razor-thin margins. You add up all the swing states that matter, this election was decided by 50,000 votes. And so Google, with one subtle change to their search algorithms, boom, cooks the election for Joe Biden. And that's why you need young people like me who understand technology, who know what time it is, to get in there and hold Google accountable, right? Because otherwise they're just going to do it again. And like I said, you could fix every other issue. Tighten up the border, fix the schools, fix inflation. If you let left-wing multinational corporations decide the results of our elections, you live in a banana republic and you're not going to have a free country. And that's why big tech is just as important as any other issue. So I can feel I'm getting the hook. My time is up. I'll stick afterwards to answer any questions.